Sayadaw has been explaining about kilesa defilements for about 3 days already, so that yogis will understand about kilesa defilements. Sayadaw has been explaining about kilesa defilements in detail, so that one will know that kilesa defilements are degrading and inferior, and that kilesa defilements can make the person's life inferior and degrading. As Sayadaw wants the yogi to know the faults and flaws of defilements, Sayadaw has been explaining in detail. If one does not see the flaws, one will not be shameful, one will not be afraid of it. Sayadaw gives an example. If a being does not know that feces are things that is disgusting, then one can mess with it, and then it will be dirty. The kilesa defilements are even more dirty and polluted than the feces. The defilements burn, torture the person so that the person becomes polluted. And if Sayadaw has to explain with stories and references, it will be even more lengthy. As Sayadaw has to explain in short time, combining with the practice, at times Sayadaw may explain from the true happening. If one does not know the flaws, the faults, one may take it as good, and one will not be shameful or afraid of it. If one is not shameful or afraid of it, then one can be polluted and dirty. If one knows that these defilements can give bad results, the person will have moral shame and moral fear from these defilements. The example is given here. A person will not touch an iron ball which is dirty with feces, and a person will not touch an iron ball which is red hot, as the person is afraid to get burnt. So these two examples are compared to hiri and ottappa, moral shame and moral fear. Having moral shame and moral fear, one understands that the defilements and unwholesome deeds are faulty, and one will not relish in these defilements and misconduct. Seeing the flaws of defilements and misconduct, there will be adinava, which is opposite of asada, the opposite of relishing. If one take them as good and pleasant, there will be asada-nupassana, seeing them as relishing. If one knows the flaws or the faults, there will be Adinavanupasana, one will see them as fault-worthy, and one will have shame and fear. If one sees the flaws of it a little, then there will be a little moral shame, moral fear. If one sees the flaws much, there will be much moral shame and moral fear. And if one sees the flaws of these defilements and misconduct completely, then there will be complete moral shame and moral fear. So hiri and ottappa, moral shame and moral fear, will be replacing ahirika and anuttappa, lack of moral shame and lack of moral fear. When one is reluctant to perform misconduct, there will be sankojana. The person will flinch away, the person will withdraw from doing misconduct. So the person will not perform misconduct by body, speech and mind, so that his or her physical, verbal and mental behavior will be blameless, pure, clean, gentle, lovable and peaceful. This is the benefit of having hiri and ottappa, moral shame and moral fear. As a human being, it is important that one has hiri and ottappa, moral shame and moral fear from wrongdoing, so that one will be blameless, gentle, cultured, pure and lovable, and one must cherish this purity. One will also understand that the practice that can purify the person is really correct, and when one sees one's benefits from one's own experience, one will cherish even more the practice, and the person will take more care to purify. The more care one takes to purify, the more purified the person will be, the more gentle, more cultured, more peaceful the person will become. So Sayadaw has been explaining about the kilesa defilements, gross, medium and refined form of defilements that are following throughout the round of existences. So Sayadaw has been explaining from both theory and practice. In the text, kilesa are defined as Citta, Kilesanti, Vipadanti, Upakapanti, Kilesa, meaning that kilesa defilements torment the mind and the person so that there will be discomfort in one's mind and one's self. Kilesa defilements burn and scorch the mind and the person, and these kilesa defilements give trouble to both the mind and the person. The mind and the person who are tormented by the defilements become exhausted and there will be discomfort. When kilesa arise in the mind will suffer as well as the person will suffer. There will not be any comfort. At times, it may seem that there is comfort, but the mind will be unwholesome and polluted when defilements are present. Usually, the worldlings have kilesa defilement most of the time. And if one thinks that there is nothing to be concerned about these defilements, if they do not think that one should eliminate, one should remove, abandon these defilements, then the person will be degraded and inferior. People who lack patisankhana bala, people who lack power of prudence, they do not find ways in order to abandon the defilement, as they do not know the flaws, the faults of kilesa defilement. They do not find the way out of kilesa defilement, and thus they are suffering, and they are suffering amidst kilesa defilement, and they are polluted. That's why it is very important to have power of prudence. When one has power of prudence, understanding that kilesa defilements are the things that are tormenting, one will find ways in order to remove, in order to prevent, cure, suppress, and uproot these defilements. Saraji has given example when illnesses break out in the world, people are afraid of these illnesses. Medical experts do research on these illnesses, and when they have found a cure, they will announce that there has been cure to certain illnesses. So people will feel assured if there is cure to these illnesses, and people will take necessary measures in order to prevent, in order to cure these illnesses, and they will take prescribed medicine in order to cure the illness. And some of the illnesses in the world has become extinct. In the same way, one should have power of prudence in order to prevent, cure, suppress, uproot the kilesa defilement. Just as a person should not be negligent about one's physical health, in the same way, one should not be negligent of one's mental health. So one should not leave one's mind polluted, defiled, or dirty. One should find method, way, in order to strengthen one's mind, in order to keep one's mind healthy. Just as one needs to be healthy, physically healthy, in order to have physical resistance, physical stamina, to have resistance to the illnesses, in the same way, one needs to know the way how to practice in order to have spiritual resistance, spiritual stamina. One should have power of prudence. One should find ways how to strengthen one's mind in order to have spiritual resistance. If one does not see the flaws or the faults of defilements, one will think of them as good and one will relish them. Seeing flaws, seeing faults, one will no longer take them as good, and one will easily abandon, give up these defilements. By abandoning, by giving up, one will gain precious benefits. Patisankhana bala, power of prudence, is essential in every aspect. In one's worldly education, also in one's business to earn, also in marriage, social work, and so on. In life, in order to be blameless, pure, and clean, one needs prudence. When one is about to do something, about to talk something, about to think something for oneself or for others, before one does, before one talks, before one thinks, one should ponder whether it is beneficial or not. Even though it may be beneficial, but if it is not suitable, then one should not do it. One should only do, one should only talk, one should only think things that are both beneficial and suitable. So one needs prudence, power of reflection to differentiate whether something is beneficial or not, whether something is suitable or not. So it is very important. When one is skillful in such reflection and prudence, there will be nepaka panya, mature knowledge. One's knowledge will become tender to ripe, and one will become mature. When one has nepaka panya, mature knowledge, one will be able to avoid from things that are not beneficial, and one will be able to avoid from doing, talking, thinking of things that are not suitable, and one will easily perform things, talk about things, think about things that are both beneficial and suitable. The knowledge leading the person to refrain from things that are harmful, to perform things that are beneficial, such kind of knowledge is called parihariya panya. Having parihariya panya, one will be able to refrain from things that are prohibited. One is able to perform things that are beneficial. Being able to refrain from things that are prohibited, one will not meet harm. Being able to perform things that are beneficial and suitable, one will gain benefit. So one should have power of prudence, power of reflection, so that such knowledge will become mature. Kilesa, defilements, not only burn, but it leaves the place dirty and polluted and ugly. Just as fire leaves the place that has been burnt to be dirty and black. In the same way, when kilesa, defilement, burn the mind, the mind is left polluted and dirty. Kilesa defilements are the things that make the mind polluted, dirty, and inferior, and degraded. When fire burns things, the things that are burnt are left dark, polluted, and they become coal. They become charcoal, and they are dirty and disgusting. In the same way, when kilesa defilements burn the mind is left dirty and polluted. In Pali, fire is called agi, and another word for fire is karna vatani. Fire is called karna vatani. Karna means dirty, and vatani means the path that is left dirty by fire. So fire is called karna vatani because it leaves the path that has been burned to be left dirty and polluted and dark. So let us relate fire to kilesa defilement. Just as fire leaves things dirty and polluted, in the same way, when the person's mind is burned by defilement, lobha, dosa, moha, the mind becomes polluted. It is called malina. The mind will be polluted when burnt by kilesa defilement. When one is tormented by kilesa defilement, the mind and the person becomes degraded and inferior and low class. Just as fire leaves the fuel dirty and polluted, in the same way, the defilements leave the mind and the person dirty and diluted, dirty and polluted. If one does not know the way how to prevent, how to cure, how to suppress, uproot the defilements, the person will be constantly burned and tormented by kilesa defilement. That's why Buddha had guided the beings the way to extinguish kilesa defilements so that each and every one will be able to extinguish defilement fire. So each and every one should be firemen, firewomen who are extinguishing the kilesa defilement fire. Mala means dirt in Pali. In the clothes that people wear every day, even though the person may take care, but it becomes dirty with dirt. So if the clothes are worn every day without washing, they become dirty with dirt, so that one has to wash them in order to keep the clothes clean. When the clothes are washed properly, they will be clean, and the person wearing them will feel at ease when going with the clothes on to places. In the same way, there can be dirt, defilement dirt in the mind. The mind cannot be seen as the body can be seen, Even though the mind cannot be seen, there can be raga mala, the lust, dirt in the mind that can keep the mind dirty. And there can also be other defilement, dirt in the mind. When there is attracting object, the person will easily be attracted to it. There can be lust. And when one comes across unpleasant objects, there can be dosa. There can be dosa, dirt. And also there can be delusion, dirt. The mind can be dirty with defilement, dirt. Just as one has to wash dirty clothes to keep the clothes clean, in the same way, one should wash one's mind by 3 kinds of training: sila, samadhi, and panya. One should wash away one's mind with sila, samadhi, panya in order to keep one's mind clean. If one leaves the mind unwashed, uncleaned by using 3 kinds of training, the mind will be dirty and degraded. So one has to wash the dirt in the clothes. Also one has to wash one's body to be free of dirt. In the same way, one should also wash the mental dirt. Mental dirt is worse than the dirt that can arise in the clothes or in one's body. So that's why it is very important to wash one's mind so that it will be free from mental dirt. So one should take care in order to keep one's mind clean by washing the mind. Compared with this example, when the fire leaves the place that has been burned dirty and polluted. In the same way, the path of kilesa defilement will not be clean, but instead the path of kilesa defilement will be dirty, polluted. In order that beings should wash the dirt, one should practice sila, samadhi, and panya, morality, concentration, and wisdom. Buddha, seeing that the beings are polluted with dirt, defilement dirt, Buddha had given way of sila, samadhi, panya, morality, concentration, and wisdom to wash the mental dirt so that the being will not be degraded. When one has to go to a party, one should wear clothes that has been washed clean, and also one should clean one's body. One should wash one's body so that one's body will be clean without any dirt or any impurities. So when going to a party in clean clothes and also the body had a shower, then the person will be at ease. Meeting with family, friends in the party, the person will not be reluctant to go to the party. In the same way, one should understand that there can be mental dirt in one's mind, and one should wash one's mind so that the mind will be free from mental dirt. In order to wash one's mind, one should use the method that Buddha had given to keep the mind clean. If the person used the method that Buddha had prescribed in order to wash the mind, to keep away from the mental dirt, the mind will be clean. And the mind can also become totally cleaned when one has fully washed one's mind. And Sayadaw has given the example, black color absorbs heat and white color repels heat. White color is compared to hiri and ottappa, moral shame and moral fear. If one is lacking moral shame and moral fear, the person will not have any guardianship, and thus the person is destroying one's world as well as destroying the surrounding world. If the person is ruining one's own world as well as the surrounding, the person will not be a true human. The person will not have a humane mind. So the person is deprived of virtue. When one has sila, samadhi, panya, morality, concentration and wisdom, the person will shine with virtue. If one lacks sila, samadhi, panya, the person will be dim and vague, and the person will not shine with virtue. Sayadaw will continue to explain tomorrow. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.